Genshin Impact's 4.7 patch brings the highly anticipated Clorinde and Sigewinne, as well as reruns for Alhaitham and Furina, and while some people know exactly who they want to get, a lot of people are having trouble deciding. That's why in this video we'll go over Clorinde, Alhaitham, Sigewinne, and Furina's strengths, weaknesses, team viability, and overall value. That way you'll know if one of these 5 stars is worth your Primo Gems. After I break down each character, I'll tell you who is the best value for your Primo Gems and give you a proven strategy that will help you get the characters you really want in the future. Each of the 5 stars on this list will receive a grading from bad to great in several categories, including personal damage, support capability, team flexibility, and free-to-play friendliness. I'll also recommend characters that would make good teammates for these 5 stars, since you often need specific characters to really unlock the power of a limited 5 star. But as always, if you know who you really want already, then just wish for them. This is a guide to help clarify what the patch 4.5 limited 5 stars can do well, and what they struggle with, so you'll be better prepared to solve any problems that arise when you play them. Just know that Clorinde and Sigewinne are new 5 stars, so we need to test them to fully understand how good they are, but based on the info we have, we can give them a proper evaluation. With that said, make sure to place your fin on that like button to receive the blessing of Shark Luck. Share it with anyone you think it can help, let me know who you're pulling for, and let's start the grading with the long-awaited duelist and newest addition to the Genshin cast, Clorinde. Clorinde is an on-field electro damage dealer who uses a bunch of random mechanics which let her spam enhanced normal attacks and have a special skill within her skill. And by random mechanics, I mean a bunch of Bond of Life shenanigans, which on the surface seem very complicated, but with Clorinde they're actually pretty fluid. Clorinde's playstyle revolves around using your elemental skill to enter a special state where her normal attacks turn into electro pistolet blasts that give her Bond of Life. Clorinde can use her elemental skill again during this state to do a lunging sword attack. When she has a Bond of Life, this special sword attack removes her accumulated Bond of Life, then heals her and does increased damage in a larger AoE. When her Bond of Life is over 100% of her maximum HP, this special sword lunge heals for even more and does even more damage. Clorinde's elemental burst looks amazing, but realistically it's the same thing as Wanderer and Wriothesley's burst with one important difference. Her burst hits 5 times, does pretty good damage, but it also gives her a large amount of Bond of Life, which is essential to her kit and her playstyle. Clorinde really wants her Bond of Life to be over 100% of her max HP, that way her special sword lunges do more damage and heal a lot more, and also because she has a passive ability that increases her crit rate when her Bond of Life is 100% or more. She also has a pretty cool passive that increases her electro damage when party members trigger electro reactions, and this will be very important later, especially when we talk about her teams. And while reading Clorinde's kit may seem like a small novel, she is relatively simple to play. Just use your skill to enter a special attack state, normal attack to fire your pistolet shots and gain Bond of Life with each hit, then use your skill again to perform a special sword lunging attack, preferably when your Bond of Life is over 100% of your HP, and then burst when appropriate for extra damage and to gain more Bond of Life, and then repeat. Clorinde is a very interesting character with some unique strengths, but also plenty of limitations. Clorinde's self-healing ability really helps her a lot. Even if Bond of Life prevents healing, Clorinde's special lunge can heal her enough to be played in teams with Furina and without a healer, which is quite rare. However, Clorinde's team options are pretty limited. Her best teams are Aggravate and Hyperbloom teams with Dendro characters. She can do well in other Electro teams, like Chevre's Overloaded teams, but in those teams, Raiden is often just a better choice for an on-field damage dealer. So how good is Clorinde overall? Will she blast her way to the top? Or has this champion duelist actually been firing blanks? It's time to give Clorinde a rating. Clorinde's personal damage is good to great. Clorinde has a lot of tools to make her a pretty powerful damage dealer, but she also really relies on her team and her passives to give her extra damage bonuses from your team's electro reactions. The damage scaling of her talents isn't particularly good, so she needs a lot of extra stats from her passives to make up for it. What's pretty unique is that Clorinde can run with no healer or shielder on the team, which we'll talk more about in the team section in just a bit. This means that Clorinde can use an extra off-field damage dealer in place of a typical healer or shielder. And this helps make up for her less than stellar talent damage. So for Clorinde to really shine, you'll want to use her with some of her best supports, otherwise she'll feel pretty average. Clorinde's support capability is bad. Clorinde is an on-field damage dealer, and if she's not on-field as the active character dealing damage, then she offers no support whatsoever. Clorinde's team flexibility is okay. While Clorinde can run on a variety of electro teams, she really wants to be on an Aggravate or a Hyperbloom style team to make the most out of her passive ability. Other electro teams will be fine, but if you already have Raiden, Clorinde may be a strict downgrade in terms of damage. What is really unique about Clorinde's teams, however, is her ability to self-heal. And she heals a lot, enough that you could run her without a healer or shielder and be fine, but also be able to run her with Furina and still be fine without any extra heals. Most people know that Furina's elemental burst increases damage as she gets fanfare stacks, but a lot of people forget that it also increases healing bonus, which directly affects the healing of Clorinde's special sword skill Lunge. So you can realistically run a team with Clorinde without a healer and be fine, and something like Clorinde, Nahida, Furina, and Kazuha, Fischl, Yelan, or Yaimiko would work great. Her free-to-play and 4-star team options are a lot more limited, and she may do better with more teams in the future, but right now she doesn't have quite as many options. Clorinde's free-to-play friendliness is okay. Clorinde has a very nice free-to-play weapon option, being the Finale of the Deep, a craftable sword that you can unlock in Fontaine. This weapon gives her a ton of attack, and even though it's a free-to-play option, it's still one of her best overall. But sadly, her free-to-play friendliness elsewhere isn't as good. Most of her best supports are limited 5 stars, and while certain 4 stars like Fischl or Xingqiu are great with her, those supports are also great with pretty much everyone. So while she has a good free-to-play weapon option, her reliance on limited 5 stars and specific supports for specific team setups make her slightly less free-to-play friendly. Clorinde's overall rating is good. Clorinde is a solid character and has a lot of potential with the right builds and the right teams. The problem is that she occupies a similar space to Cyno and Raiden. In Aggravate and Hyperbloom teams, she's a bit easier to use than Cyno, but compared to Raiden, she falls flat in a lot of areas, especially when you move outside of Dendro team. Clorinde is very reliant on her supports. I personally would not recommend pulling for her unless you have Nahida, and if you already have Raiden, she won't do much for your account. But if you want to pull for her, just know that she'll rely a lot on good supports and off-field damage dealers to really show you what she's capable of. Recommended teammates for Clorinde include Furina, Xingqiu, Yelan, Kazuha, Sucrose, Fischl, Beidou, Yaimiko, and Nahida. Next, we move on to the feeble scholar Alhaitham. Alhaitham is an on-field Dendro damage dealer that some people call Dendro Kaching, and it's easy to see why. His skill lets him teleport to an enemy, dealing Dendro damage and then granting him a Dendro infusion. And his elemental burst is a multi-light bouncing laser show that looks a lot like Kaching's burst, but those similarities are just surface level. The truth is that Alhaitham plays a lot more like Tartaglia than he does Kaching. What I mean by that is that you'll have to stick to tight timing and rotations, and if you don't, you'll end up doing pretty much no damage while you wait for your abilities to come off their long cooldowns. Playing Alhaitham effectively requires understanding how to best use his elemental skill and elemental burst to gain his Chisel Light mirrors and Dendro infusion upon his attacks. These mirrors scale off of Alhaitham's attack and elemental mastery, and he wants about 350 to 400 elemental mastery to increase the damage of these mirrors. The maximum amount of mirrors he can have is 3, and depending on how and when you use his skills, you can get 1, 2, or 3 mirrors. His mirror abilities will trigger when he uses his normal attacks. His 3 mirror ability is a Gilgamesh style sword rain. His 2 mirror ability is a Dendro Beyblade, and his 1 mirror ability is a little Dendro Whisper that deals insignificant damage. You pretty much only want to use Alhaitham's 3 mirror ability or your damage will suffer a lot. Playing Alhaitham can get a little bit complex, but there's basically 2 rotations you'll use. A standard on-field damage rotation, and a front-loaded rotation that deals tons of damage in a short amount of time, but at the cost of not being able to do much for about 20 seconds. The standard rotation starts with the elemental burst, and then there's a 2-second delay before using normal attacks for 4 seconds, and then using Alhaitham's skill, and then attacking for another 4 seconds, and then finally using a charged attack for a few more seconds, before then switching out to refresh your buffs and other abilities. The front-loaded version of his rotation has you using his skill aimed slightly in the air, then doing a plunging attack while in the air. This gets you 3 mirrors very quickly, which you will immediately spend by casting your elemental burst, allowing it to generate many more hits. This rotation is effective on enemies that have very small windows to take decent damage, like the Waynute, but otherwise this rotation is pretty much useless because it leaves Alhaitham unable to do much for a really long time, and at that point he's just dead weight. These rotations make Alhaitham feel more like Tartaglia because if you don't adhere to the proper rotation and timing, then you end up with really long cooldowns and it feels really bad to play him. That being said, Alhaitham has a high potential for damage, especially in spread teams or Hyperbloom teams, because he has a special internal cooldown in his Dendro infused state that allows him to apply Dendro every 2 hits instead of every 3. This means he can trigger elemental reactions more frequently than typical characters, which is a huge advantage for him. So just how strong is the Swole Scholar? It's time to give Alhaitham a rating. Alhaitham's personal damage is good to great. On his own, his damage isn't too crazy, but he gets much stronger when paired with an off-field electro damage dealer like Fischl. Alhaitham's damage in spread and Hyperbloom teams greatly outperforms other team setups, with the caveat that you have to learn his rotations and skill timings properly, or you could mess up subsequent rotations very easily. But with the right supports and proper rotation, Alhaitham does great damage in a sizable AoE. Alhaitham's support capability is bad. He's an on-field damage dealer, and while he has a front-loaded rotation for quick damage and then could switch out, he's best used on-field as a Dendro reaction driver and damage dealer. And this combined with his lack of off-field damage or utility make him have virtually no support capabilities at all. Alhaitham's team flexibility is okay. Alhaitham can be used in a variety of teams, but he really wants to be in a team with an off-field electro damage dealer like Fischl, Beto, or Yaimiko. He also has some issues with energy and really benefits a lot from having supports like Nahida. Without Nahida in the team, Alhaitham's energy issues become a lot more apparent, and when he's not in a team with an off-field electro damage dealer, his damage suffers considerably. But when he's in a spread team or a Hyperbloom team with good supports, he does really well. Alhaitham's free-to-play friendliness is good! He has access to good free-to-play weapons like the Iron Sting, but his teams are kind of limited and you may not have some of the 4 stars he pairs well with, like Fischl, Beto, Kuki Shinobu, or Xingqiu. Luckily, Fischl and Beto are obtainable from Paimon's Bargains, aka the Star Glitter shop, so you can eventually guarantee getting a good support for Alhaitham like Fischl as long as you save your Star Glitter. He also really benefits from Nahida, but you can use the Dendro Traveler with him in a pinch, and while he may not have the most versatility for free-to-play players, his good craftable weapon options and decent selection of 4-star teammates make him a good free-to-play option for an on-field damage dealer. Alhaitham's overall rating is good. Alhaitham has the potential to do very high damage, but that potential will only be realized with the right supports. His reliance on off-field electro damage dealers isn't too bad since Fischl and Beto are both obtainable from the Star Glitter shop during January, February, July, and August. And while he really appreciates Nahida, he can get by without her as long as you have good electro supports. He also has good free-to-play craftable weapon options in the Iron Sting, which helps him get some of the elemental mastery he really appreciates, making him a strong character overall, and also one that's decently free-to-play friendly. Recommended teammates for Alhaitham include Nahida, Jingqiu, Yalan, Fischl, Beidou, Kuki Shinobu, Yaimiko, and a Shielder or Yaoyao or Baiju as a decent support option. And now on to the Melusine medic and bubble blasting bunny of the sea, Sigewinne. Sigewinne is a bow-wielding hydro healer that has plenty of cuteness in her kit, but not too much else. Her normal attacks aren't anything special, but she does have a special charge shot that fires little heart bubbles. This is just for looks though, as the damage, speed of the attack, and size of the attack are extremely underwhelming. Sigewinne's main playstyle revolves around her elemental skill, which does several things. Her skill creates a bubble that bounces between enemies, dealing hydro damage based off her max HP, and healing all party members except Sigewinne herself. But after this bubble bounces 5 times, it will heal Sigewinne. This skill can be held to make the bubble larger for a slightly greater amount of healing and damage, but the hold duration is really long, and honestly it's not worth using in most cases. However, the hold version of her skill can imprison small enemies like Hilichurls in a cute heart-shaped bubble, so you can finally pretend to be a Hydro Abyss Mage. But the larger bubble from her hold skill will get smaller as it bounces, and each enemy can only be imprisoned by the large bubble once. Sigewinne's skill also makes 2 source water droplets, which are the same orbs that Nouvelette and the Hydro Traveler make as well. When Sigewinne absorbs these orbs, she creates a small bond of life, and when she clears it, she recovers some energy. During Sigewinne's elemental burst, she pulls out a giant syringe from Lord knows where and copies Nouvelette's special charge attack. Her burst deals damage in front of her, and its damage is based off of her max HP. However, unlike Nouvelette's charge attack, Sigewinne's burst has a much shorter duration, but a much longer cooldown, and of course it costs energy to use. Sigewinne's passive talents give her increased healing based on the total bond of life of your entire team, and she has another passive talent that increases her hydro damage bonus slightly and gives your team a few instances of increased skill damage when she uses her elemental skill. So how good is this Nudibranch nurse? Is she just what the doctor ordered, or should she stay locked up in the Fortress of Meropide? It's time to give Sigewinne a rating. Sigewinne's personal damage is bad. Sigewinne is designed to be a healer first and foremost, and although her damage scales off her max HP like a lot of other really strong Hydro characters, the talent scaling for her is just so low that it makes her damage pretty much negligible. Sigewinne's support capability is good. Sigewinne can heal for massive amounts with her elemental skill, which makes her a super comfy healer. However, her Hydro application is not very good. She can take up lots of field time, and while her passives sound pretty good, they actually aren't that useful and they don't really increase your team's damage or provide anything really useful. And a lot of other 5-star healers bring a lot more utility than just healing, and this is the reason why Sigewinne gets a good rating instead of a great rating. Sigewinne's team flexibility is good. As a healer, Sigewinne can fit into pretty much any team, and the fact that she can heal for a lot with just her elemental skill means that she's going to be really comfy and very easy to use. But there's many other healers in the game that just offer a lot more than Sigewinne does, especially if those healers are limited 5 stars. And to be honest, Sigewinne doesn't really feel like a limited 5-star character. She feels more like a 4-star character that just happens to heal a ton. But for that reason alone, she still works in pretty much any team. Sigewinne's free-to-play friendliness is okay. She can hold a Favonius Warbow to help generate energy particles for your team, which can be very helpful. But everyone gets Barbara for free, and Barbara can hold a Favonius Codex or a Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers to either help your team with energy or give your active character a ton of attack. And while Sigewinne is a much better healer than Barbara and offers a cool little bubble mechanic to play around with, she's not better than our other limited 5-star Hydro healer, Kokomi. And since Sigewinne doesn't have good off-field Hydro application, and because her other utility is pretty weak, she is quite limited and her value for free-to-play players is quite low. Sigewinne's overall value is okay. She is a very comfy healer and does tons of healing with her elemental skill, which is her biggest advantage, but she doesn't offer enough, especially compared to the other 5-star healers we have already. This, coupled with the fact that she lacks good support capability outside of healing, makes Sigewinne a character that I only recommend wishing for if you really like her. Because if you just want a healer, there are much better 5-stars and even a lot better 4-stars available. Recommended teammates for Sigewinne include Furina, and other than that, you could use her just about anywhere you need a healer. And now it's time to cover the personality-shifting god of water and justice, who's basically just what happens if you make Fischl the queen of everything, Furina. Furina is a support character that is capable of dealing damage, healing your active character, and buffing your team's damage. But she will also drain your entire team's health. Furina's elemental skill has 2 forms. In the first form, she summons some little watery friends to deal damage based on her max HP. Her sea creature attendants will remain on field even if Furina switches out. They will also drain the HP of all party members to do more damage. The second form of Furina's skill summons a healing pet that does no damage and doesn't apply any Hydro, but it does heal the on-field character for a sizable amount based on Furina's max HP. Just like Furina is prone to dramatic swings of emotion, your party's dramatic changes in HP are an integral part of her kit and also how she buffs the team. Furina's Elemental Burst does Hydro damage in an AoE and gives your team bonuses whenever a party member's HP changes, whether it goes up or down. Furina gains fanfare stacks for the total percent change of your entire party during her Elemental Burst, which means that if a character loses 40% of their total HP, but then gains back 35% of their max HP, Furina gains 75 fanfare stacks. But if this exact same change in HP happens for your entire party instead of just one member, then Furina would gain 300 fanfare stacks instead, because her Elemental Burst counts the changes of all party members, not just one character. This is really nice because every point of fanfare you have increases your team's damage and healing bonus, so stacking up fanfare by losing or gaining HP quickly is not only a good idea to increase Furina's power, but also to increase the rest of your team's damage as well. This is also why having a healer with Furina is a big advantage, especially one that can heal the entire team with just the press of a button. So how good is Furina? Is the God of Justice a righteous use of your Primogems, or is she irredeemable? It's time to give the Archon/Director Extraordinaire a rating. Furina's personal damage is good to great. Her personal damage is very solid and it's based off her max HP, so she can deal a sizable amount of damage while also being relatively tanky. Her summon pets attack when she is not the active character, and they can be kept up indefinitely, and they do pretty much all of her damage. Just know that these pets will also drain your entire team's health to do more damage, making full party healers like Jean, Barbara, Baiju, and so forth really valuable. Anyone who can keep your team's HP topped off will keep Furina's personal damage high, but also increase your team's damage during Furina's Elemental Burst. Furina's support capability is great. Furina has decent Hydro application, though not nearly as good as Xingqiu or Yelan, and not great particle generation either. However, she does have her Hydro pets up constantly, as they have a 30-second duration but only a 20-second cooldown. So she gives you constant off-field Hydro damage, which is very valuable, but also buffs your entire team based on the amount their HP yo-yos up and down. Just know that she will have fairly high energy requirements, and if you can't use her burst, then you won't be able to take advantage of her fanfare stacks to increase your team's overall damage. She can also provide provide healing in a pinch, but her healing only works on the active character, and this will be nice in the overworld, but you probably won't be using it that much in much more difficult content, like the upper floors of the Abyss. Furina's team flexibility is great! Furina will be a great character for a lot of teams, despite the fact that she kinda kills the entire team. But what's really exciting about Furina is that she can enable a lot of new teams and playstyles that are very different from typical teams we've had before. For example, Jean and Barbara are not widely used in really difficult content, but they might have a place with Furina teams, and Furina can actually be a really good support for a Noelle carry team because Furina can drain the team's HP, and then Noelle can heal it back up while also dealing damage. And as Furina drains your team's HP and Noelle heals your team's HP, you're just getting fanfare stacks that much faster and increasing your team's overall damage at the same time. And I really appreciate that Furina is a good enabler for a lot of characters that are loved but seldomly used. And of course she's good with a lot of Fontinian characters because many of them have mechanics that drain their own health and then restore it back, which makes it really easy to gain fanfare stacks. This is especially true with Neuvillette, who is even stronger with Furina in the team. Furina just works in so many different teams with so many different characters while also enabling less used characters to once again enjoy the spotlight. Furina's free-to-play friendliness is great! One of her best weapons, the Festering Desire, is an old event weapon that you can't get anymore, but she has another very nice free-to-play option in the Ferryman of Fluvsand. And even though this pipe sword looks quite inelegant on her, it does work really well. She also works in a variety of teams and even makes it so characters like Barbara and Noelle could be desirable teammates. Because she works in a variety of teams with a ton of different 5 stars and 4 stars and also has a good free-to-play weapon, Furina will be quite the free-to-play friendly character that will only increase in value as you obtain more character. Furina's overall rating is great. Furina is one of the best characters in the game. She's not a typical Hydro character, instead she's more like a team buffer and off-field damage dealer that just so happens to be blue. She will enable a lot of teams that aren't really used that often, and she doesn't need specific supports like Bennett. She's also got a good free-to-play weapon. And while Furina constantly draining everyone on your team's HP is actually pretty easy to get accustomed to, if you don't like the fact that she is constantly sapping everyone's health to deal more damage, then you probably won't like her no matter how good she is, because she will be doing that at every opportunity she gets. Recommended teammates for Furina include Neuvillette, Jean, Xinyan, Cloud Retainer, Barbara, Sigewinne, Charlotte, Baiju, Yao Yao, Xingqiu, Yelan, Nahida, Fischl, Noelle, Clorinde, and just about any other team where you want a Hydro character and can have some sort of healer. And with the gradings finished, who should you wish for? Well, if it isn't apparent already, Furina! She is not only an incredibly strong damage dealer that works off-field, she's also a Hydro character, which is one of the most desired elements in the game, and even more so when that character can apply Hydro off-field. In addition to all those advantages, she can greatly buff your team's damage as well, while also enabling a lot of characters to be stronger and more useful than before. She's also very free-to-play friendly. And because she works with so many more characters than anyone else in patch 4.7, she's also a great choice for newer players, because she will still be helpful for their accounts for a really long time, and even more so as they get more and more characters. For these reasons, Furina is my top choice for the character to wish for in patch 4.7. Now your individual case might be a little bit different, and if you're still unsure who to wish for, you are welcome to come by my Twitch stream and ask who is best for you. You can tell me who you want or who you're considering, who you already have, and then I can give you recommendations on who would be best for you. If you'd like that, just come by my stream on Twitch. I stream daily in the mornings Eastern Standard Time, and you can find me live at twitch.tv/sharkheart. That's twitch.tv/SHARKH3ART. I hope this review has been helpful and clarified the value of certain characters for you. Please let me know which characters you're going for in the comments, and don't be afraid to stop by on Twitch and ask for my shark blessing. 50% of the time, it works 100% of the time. I love you, stay jawsome, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.